Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Thor issue 35. Oh yeah, that is a crazy ass looking cover and really fucking awesome. Now granted, it does deal with Hela, but we don't get an idea of what's going on with this, or any kind of like undead things like this. So, awesome cover, does kind of pertain to what's going on, but not kind of fully. So, this is the finale of Blood of the Fathers, and ends out our tale with Hela and how this kind of introduces the kind of end for the time traveling stuff before we then start off with the immortal Thor going forward. So we go between what's going on in Thor's past, in Jotunheim, and what's going on in Latveria now. So we see that it's dealing with the story of Thor and Loki pretty much getting this dagger from, let's see, Bergelmir. Like, it began with mead or whatnot, they're singing and everything. They had traveled to Jotunheim on Sleipnir and sought shelter at the house of Bergelmir, the Jotun king. And the thing is, the king wanted their horse. Now they had this knife. And Laos is like, this is stupid. You did this for just a knife? And it's like, not just any knife. It's forged by the Light Elves in the depths of Alfheim. It never dulled. It could never cut its owner. And left in the palm of your hand, it would heat up ever so slightly if falsehoods were uttered in your presence. So Loki, of course, came up with a plan for it. And they would challenge Bergelmir to a challenge of strength. They would choose an opponent for Thor, and we would choose an opponent for him until one of us was beaten. He's like, alright, you got a deal. And Loki's like, oh, you got this, brother. And it's like, alright, let's see how this goes. So Thor is brought up against Hersvelgr, this like wrecker of ships, eater of corpses. The eagle is a mighty opponent as we see them battling. It's like, its wings are the source of the wind in all the realms, which, that's a hard damn thing to fight. We see that Thor does best it, and that it went for hours, stormed, and the seas roared. When he finally yielded, the wind stilled for a fortnight. That's just epic talk right there. And of course, Laos is like, they're idiots. And Hela, pretty much, what champion did you choose for Bergelmir? Well, Loki chose. He summoned a thing of many names. This is Moira. And of course, they're laughing because it's a little spider. And the thing is, oh, could I have a broomstick or whatnot? But the thing is, it weaved and fought the king, and it won because it has many names. She is weird. She is Ananke. She is the Norns, but most commonly she is fate. And of course, the whole thing of you can't fight fate kind of thing. Spinning the threads of destiny, weaving the tapestry of reality. And then of course he yielded, and now we then shift over to Latveria as we see the Valkyries fighting. Runa whispered the words Asgardians have feared for millennia. Disir, the soulless Valkyries once belonged to Hela, now they serve Runa. And they're like, let's do this shit, kind of shit. Hela fears them, the Disir and their mistress. And of course, Runa's like, who trapped the souls of the dead here? Doom, I will handle him. She has every reason to. Then handle him, we will deal with Nidhogg. So, of course, they then split up to deal with what they need to. So we then shift to the after as Jane Foster is speaking to Odin. And we then get the other half dealing with Odin kind of accepting what's kind of going on. Of course, this is really interesting because the Moira bit with the Spider of Fate deals with what's going on with Odin, with Thor, with Hela, with Lausa. So we see that Odin, he wanted to be one with the heavens, be the soil and the water, to be indispensable. He wanted his unlikely death to be felt throughout the realms, but at some point it changed. They held a funeral for me, you know. It was dignified, beautiful. It was everything he wanted. But as I heard my son speak of my life, stories of battles and war, of strength and cunning, I wondered if they ever knew what joy they brought me, what unbridled delights they were in my life. And that's an important thing because Odin never really would bring that kind of stuff up. And then Jane, of course, wants to know what Thor was like when he was young, and that he was a scoundrel, foolhardy, courageous, a little naive, but I suppose anyone would seem naive next to Loki. Yes, they would. And the things that they got up to, they thought that he didn't know, but he did, and he was proud of them for their courage, ingenuity, and their bloody gall. And of course, that then flips us back to the story that is unfolding as Thor allows us to see what's going on. And when he found out he was, when the Jotun King found out he was pissed, and he quite rightly blamed Loki, but I was not going to leave him to the Frost Giants. And then he defended him, and he fought him and his men for hours. But once he defeated the Frost Giants, Loki will be gone. I never understood how he got away, or who rescued him, but now it all makes sense. When I'm busy fighting the Frost Giants, we sneak in and free Loki. Isn't that him over there? He's trying to make sense of it, and Loki just fucking left his ass as he's carrying this giant fucking dagger. And he's like, bloody bastard, I cannot believe it. He left me there to fight while he stole the knife. I can believe it. It's like, yes, Lassa, exactly. It's like, come on, Thor, everything that Loki's done. Now, granted, this is full asshole Loki, not the one that we've come to learn about and see his change throughout the many various years. Of course, he greets his brother. He's like, no trickery. You are not my brother. You are... And then, of course, the knight's like, no, that's his brother. He's like, shit. All right. And then he, of course, tries to pull a fast one on him, but he's like, no, it wasn't Balder. It was Bragi who seduced Bodil, and she was a fine lady. Years haven't been kind to you, man. And the face just looks nutty. He's like, ah. And the thing is, I do like that it kind of shifts between this kind of art style and the art style that's going on in Latveria. Though, granted, I'm more partial to this one. Because, I mean, look how fucking great Thor looks there. Just like, yeah. And then, of course, he's like, why the fuck are you here? He's like, this is your purpose. I bring you your daughter, the goddess of death. It's like, shit. And that's actually pretty awesome. I like the way that the wind's kind of blowing and everything. Just making him look pretty cool. So we shift back to Doom's castle, and Doom's like, you knew all along. And Hela's like, not entirely. I knew the beginning. Series of educated guesses. And that's definitely more than you'd usually get from Hela, but it also makes sense. And she didn't know that you wanted to sacrifice the souls of the dead to conquer the will of your people. I do not do this for me, Hela. I know. You are not wrong, Victor. Your world is broken, and it is difficult to see who the enemy is. I admire your fight, your willingness to act. But if you ever come near the souls of hell again, I will grind up your bones to sugar my tea. And then he just says, and she's like, you saved my life once? Leave, run before Asgard finds you. Whatever debt I owed you is now paid. It's like, interesting way to deal with that, Hela. So then we see that Odin realizes he's reached the end, and that Mr. Horse will take him there, and that she uses Unjarn. I'm sorry, I'm butchering that pronunciation. Undrajarn. Shivers in her hand as it evolves. The light reaches all the places the dead go after. She feels the cold breeze of hell and smells the honeyed meat of Valhalla through the weapon in her hand. And around her, the dead move as one. And that's just the beginning of kind of what's going on there as we then shift back to Thor pretty much. Thor and Loki discussing the least amount of things going on with Hela, just pretty much like, you can do this. And Loki's like, I don't know, man. And then Thor pretty much describes how Hela turns out. And he's like, sounds like a kid of mine. And that he had to get her away from their grandfather. Good idea to keep her away from father as well. Take her to Angerboda. You were on your way there to give her the knife anyway, right? Ah, yes. She might be the one. One of the ones anyway. Nothing like a woman who can crush you like an ant if she wants to, is there? There really isn't. Not even goodbye. You think they'll be okay? The centuries are long. There are good years and bad years. But we leave the past to the past. It is time we return to our times now, Lausa. And they then start going off, and Lausa tries to tell him certain things, but he's like, nope, the me in your time told you what to tell me. Do not say anything else. And then, of course, she's trying to tell him something else, and he's like, I will handle it. Do not tell me anything. Okay. Well, future you told me to let let me start fight training right away, and not wait until I'm 6. Did I now? Nice try. And she's like, damn it, worth a shot. And evidently Volstag's already starting to do that. And he's like, have mercy. Bestla, have mercy. I think that's an L. Yeah. So they pretty much shift away to their certain times, which was nice seeing Thor palling around with his sister. So we see Odin dealing with everything, and he tells Jane to tell Thor something, and of course the dead wait for him, and he said that he will lead them, and she says farewell to Odin and King Bor, as we see that Odin is leading Mr. Horse, with Bor riding on the horse, and that the horse wants carrots. They walk with their All-Father to Valhalla. Their journey ends the age of Odin, which, that's pretty cool. Now begins the age of Thor, as Thor gets back to time, our time in Latveria, and we see that Runa and the Disir are trying to take down Nidhogg, and of course he screams, "Where's Doom?" And we see that Runa pretty much just cracks that ass, just like bam. And that Hela dealt with him, and he's like, that's within her rights. Goes for a book in Doom's he says there's a book in Doom's office of ancient Asgardian spells. Bring it to Asgard, destroy everything else. And of course she's like, you heard the king, sisters. And then we get to the end, as we see that Jane Foster can still hear the dead, and he asks where Odin is, and that he's in Valhalla, and that he finds that hard to believe. And she's like, he knew you'd say that, so he had me to told me to tell you something. The last thing Ostegompen saw before he fell asleep was the stars beyond the stars. And there on the moor, he found that he had been at home all along. And we see that Thor is kind of like quiet at that first. And then she's like, what did it mean? It was a game we played. From time to time, he would come downstairs and tell us bedtime stories. And there was one about a giant who was trying to find his way back home. And every time Ostegompen was about to finish his adventure, we would ask about anything to keep the story going. Like, what about the rabbit? And Odin would play along and say something like, their voices, I forgot about the rabbit. How could I forget the rabbit? That is a story for another night. Kind of like any kind of good story. That is a story for another night, another time. And so the tale continued year after year. He was not the king in those moments. He was our father. And that's a very clear distinction, because King Odin is like a fucking asshole, but we see more of the father at this end. And we would never let Ostegompen find his way home, because we knew it would mean the story would end. He is truly gone then. He is home. Thank you, Jane. The king is dead. Long live the king. As he thanks her and then flies off to do what he has to do. And then we see that this is also the end for the Ravens fan letters section. So we'll have to see how that kind of works out in the next iteration of the Immortal Thor. And also we've got this going on in Avengers, which looks fucking amazing. But not in Tony's best kind of interest, because he is getting fucked up there. So, I really enjoyed this. We've also got Thor Annual up next, before we get that going on. And I'm going to be getting that as well. So, I like this issue because it resolved everything that we'd been going on and was a nice conclusion. We get the wrap up of Hela's origin through this tale, which is pretty nice and pretty freaking crazy and interesting. And it could have been nuttier because time travel's involved, because you always have to watch out with how time travel works out. This worked out well enough for me that there weren't any weird friggin' inconsistencies or whatnot that's like, this is breaking my brain. It just worked well enough because they were able to actually figure everything out. And we see Hela dealing with Doom, understanding where he came from, and be like, you fuck with my shit again, I will fucking end your ass. And Doom just be like, yeah, so that, I can understand people being kind of like, not happy with how that kind of resolution went down, but there was a lot of things that we kind of had to tie up together, and then we get Runa dealing with Nidhogg, and the best kind of thing is like the Thor thing, dealing with Hela and getting that set up, and pretty much talking with Loki, and then Jane dealing with Odin and understanding his point of view of wanting to essentially be his own legacy, but understanding that his children are, and that he has to continue on this adventure for the people that fought for him for Valhalla and died in battle, and to go on forth for the next thing, because death is but one step on the journey, and who knows, only those who have taken that step will see what's next, because hell, hell, hell is the goddess of death and has to deal with all this kind of stuff as well. And the thing is, we see death constantly in the Marvel Comics universe, and there's people that leave and come back and everything, and Odin is now going to the next kind of place. There's always something else. And we'll see kind of, like, Odin can come back, and same with Thor, but I'm interested to see more of Thor being King Thor and all that, if that's kind of how it goes with the immortal Thor. Though granted, that might just be Thor being Thor and doing Thor things, which I have no problem with. I do like when Thor is in the kingship to see how he changes up, if he becomes less warrior-like, or if he stays as Thor, the kind of warrior champion of Asgard, and get others to take the place. Because that's kind of what happened with Balder at certain kind of instances as well, because he understood that he could be of better use defending Asgard rather than the one ruling Asgard. Though I do like him being put kind of outside of his comfort zone of trying to rule Asgard and understanding what works, what doesn't, what he can do and fight, i.e. when he needs to bring out the All-Father's power and all that, and when others he needs to delegate and see what goes on with those kind of rationales. So I always like seeing that kind of stuff. So I really liked this conclusion and can't wait to see where Thor's new journeys will come up next. So those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.